There is a particular kind of moment that no royal press office can fully stage. It happens in the half-second between the official pose and the next one, when a person forgets, just briefly, that they are being watched. For Queen Letizia of Spain, one of those moments came this month, not at a state dinner or a palace balcony, but on a sofa in Barcelona, in a video the Spanish royal household chose to release itself. It shows her watching her husband, King Felipe VI, as Spain's national football team secured its place in the World Cup final. And in the days since, that footage has quietly become one of the more talked about glimpses into a marriage that has spent more than 2 decades being analyzed, questioned, and, this year, increasingly reassessed. To understand why a single glance matters, it helps to remember what these two people have actually built together, in public, since 2004. Letizia Ortiz was not born into this world. She was a journalist, a war correspondent, a news anchor for Spanish television who had covered the September 11 attacks from New York and reported from Iraq. When she married the heir to the Spanish throne in Madrid in May of 2004, she was the first commoner in the modern history of the Spanish monarchy to become queen consort, and the first divorcee as well. The engagement stunned a country still adjusting to the idea that its future queen had, until recently, been reading the evening news. The early years were not easy, and Letizia has never pretended otherwise, at least not through her public bearing. Palace correspondents in Madrid spent the better part of a decade describing her as stiff, controlled, visibly uncomfortable with the choreography of monarchy. There is a well-worn observation among royal watchers, repeated so often it has become something close to consensus, that Letizia's public warmth had to be earned rather than assumed, that unlike royals raised inside the institution from birth, she had to learn its grammar as a second language. Felipe, for his part, was raised inside that grammar from the moment he could walk. He is the only son of King Juan Carlos I and Queen Sofia, trained from childhood for a role his father would abdicate to him in 2014, in the middle of a corruption scandal that had badly damaged the monarchy's standing. What makes the events of this July worth pausing on is that they arrive at a moment when both halves of that story, the outsider queen and the institution-bred king, are being tested again, from a different direction. Just 1 week before that World Cup video was filmed, on July 10, the royal family appeared together at the General Air and Space Academy in San Javier, in the region of Murcia, for a very different kind of occasion. Their eldest daughter, Princess Leonor, heir to the throne, completed the final stage of a 3-year military training program that had taken her through Spain's Army, Navy, and Air Force academies. It was meant to be a triumphant day, a formal marking of the moment the next generation of the monarchy proved her readiness. Instead, it was overshadowed by wildfires burning through the Los Gallardos area, a crisis serious enough to pull public attention away from the ceremony itself, even as the family tried to hold the occasion together. Reporting on the day noted that the family made a point of showing up in force for Leonor at the academy, all of them present, a small but deliberate signal that whatever else was happening in the country, this milestone would not go unmarked. It is worth sitting with that timeline for a second. Within a span of roughly 10 days, Felipe and Letizia moved from a wildfire-shadowed military graduation for their daughter, to a private family broadcast of unrestrained joy over a football match, to a scheduled public commemoration in Barcelona alongside Pope Leo XIV marking the completion of the Sagrada Familia's final tower, exactly 100 years after the death of its architect, Antoni Gaudí. That is not a quiet stretch of royal life. It is the kind of compressed sequence, grief and duty and unguarded happiness stacked one after another, that tends to produce exactly the sort of candid, unscripted expression that royal watchers spend years waiting for. The football video itself is worth describing in some detail, because the details are what carry the emotional weight, more than any single interpretation of them. Spain had just defeated France 2-0 to book its place in the World Cup final, a result that sent crowds into the streets across the country. Felipe himself had missed the earlier semifinal in person, unable to travel to the match in the United States because the family was committed to presiding over the annual Princess of Girona Awards back home. So instead of a stadium seat, the king watched this pivotal match the same way millions of ordinary Spaniards did, from a sofa, with his family around him. The royal household's own footage shows Felipe, Letizia, Leonor, and the younger daughter, Infanta Sofia, gathered in front of a television in Barcelona, all four of them wearing personalized Spain jerseys, Felipe's stitched with the number 26 for the tournament year, Leonor's carrying her own name across the back. When the final whistle confirmed the win, the king threw both arms into the air, and then turned to pull his wife and daughters into what the household's release described as an emotional group hug. It is in the moments around that celebration, rather than in the celebration itself, that the more interesting material sits. Footage from the gathering shows stretches where the family is simply watching, arms around one another, tracking the match with the kind of unguarded tension that has nothing to do with royal protocol and everything to do with being a football-loving family during a nail-biting semifinal. Somewhere in that footage is Letizia's face, mid-match, turned toward her husband rather than the screen. Whether that particular frame amounts to proof of some larger emotional statement is, frankly, more than the available reporting can support, and this script won't pretend otherwise. What can be said with confidence is that the household chose to release this material at all. Palace communications teams do not typically hand over behind-the-scenes footage of the royal family in matching football jerseys, mid-embrace, without a reason. After a year in which the Spanish monarchy has had to manage the fallout of Juan Carlos's continued exile, questions about succession, and a national conversation about the institution's relevance that pulling out of the University of Murcia has shown to be closer to a toss-up than palace officials would probably like, a video like this one serves a purpose beyond nostalgia. It says, in the most low-stakes way possible, this is a family, not just an institution. That distinction, family versus institution, is really the throwline of Letizia and Felipe's entire 22 years together. Royal watchers who study body language, a genre of commentary that has expanded considerably around European monarchies in the past several years, tend to return again and again to a specific idea when discussing long-married couples in the public eye: mirroring. It is a well-documented behavioral pattern, cited repeatedly in commentary on multiple royal families, that couples who have built genuine rapport unconsciously echo each other's posture, their gestures, the angle of their bodies toward one another, in ways that people without that closeness do not. Analysts who study the Spanish family's daughters, Leonor and Sofia, have specifically pointed to this kind of mirroring as evidence of the closeness between the sisters, noting that people typically create physical distance when there isn't an emotional bond, and that the absence of that distancing is itself a signal. Whether the same pattern shows up reliably between Felipe and Letizia across their public appearances is not something this script can verify from a single expert quote, but it is the broader lens through which body language commentary on this family tends to operate, and it is a reasonable frame for thinking about why a moment like the World Cup video resonates the way it does. There is also the matter of what the couple's public record actually shows about their partnership when the cameras are formally rolling, as opposed to when a palace team is quietly filming a family sofa. Earlier this month, on July 2, the King and Queen appeared together at the 106th ABC Journalism Awards in Madrid, an event with particular resonance for Letizia given her own background as a journalist before she entered the royal family. Coverage of that evening included an observation, from someone commenting on the published photographs, that in one image the king seemed unable to look away from his wife. It is a small, almost throwaway line, the kind of comment that appears constantly in royal photo galleries and usually means very little on its own. But taken alongside the football video, alongside the joint appearance with the Pope in Barcelona, alongside the family's decision to show up together, all four of them, at Leonor's wildfire-shadowed graduation in San Javier, a pattern starts to emerge that has less to do with any single glance and more to do with frequency. This is a couple that keeps choosing to be photographed together, keeps choosing to let the cameras catch the unscripted moments, at a point in their marriage and in the life of the Spanish monarchy when they could just as easily manage their image more cautiously. None of this erases the harder chapters. Felipe's own father remains in self-imposed exile in Abu Dhabi, a living reminder of the scandal that nearly cost the monarchy its legitimacy, and reporting has repeatedly noted how carefully Leonor's public schedule is managed to avoid overlapping with her grandfather's visits home. Letizia's relationship with the wider royal family, and in particular with her mother-in-law, Queen Sofia, has been the subject of years of speculation, some of it substantiated, much of it not. The institution Felipe and Letizia represent is, according to the polling coming out of Professor Antonia Martinez's research project at the University of Murcia, viewed with something close to 50-50 ambivalence by the Spanish public, evenly split between those who see the monarchy as a stabilizing tradition and those who see it as an anachronism. A single warm video of a family watching football does not resolve any of that. It was never going to. What it does do, arguably, is offer a rare and fairly convincing glimpse of the private mechanics underneath the public marriage, the thing viewers are almost always guessing at when they watch two people stand next to each other at a state function for 20 years. Marriages inside monarchies are performed constantly, by necessity, and performance makes sincerity difficult to verify from the outside. But performance is also expensive to sustain in unguarded moments, on a sofa, in football jerseys, with a match on the line and nobody arranging the shot. If there is an honest answer to what a viewer is looking at when they watch Letizia's expression during that World Cup celebration, it is probably this, not proof of a secret emotional narrative, but evidence, however small, that after 22 years, an eldest daughter graduating into the military, a father-in-law in exile, and a country still arguing about whether the crown even belongs on anyone's head, two people built something in that house in Barcelona worth defending with their arms wrapped around each other when the whistle blew. That is, in the end, a more modest claim than a title like Letizia's emotional glance at Felipe might promise. But it is also, on the evidence actually available, the more honest one. The rest, the precise content of a look exchanged mid-match, the interior weight of 22 years of compromise and adjustment and, evidently, real affection, belongs to two people who have spent their entire adult lives being watched, and who chose, this month, to let the cameras catch them being happy anyway.